Hello and good morning, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in to Sin's Workshop. Today we're going to be talking about Wayward Witch, the final novel in Zoraida Cordova's Brooklyn Brujas series published by Sourcebooks Fire. So this novel follows somewhat the same formula as the previous two novels. It follows Rose Mortiz. She's the final daughter in the Mortiz family. And much like the previous two novels, she's also having this question of faith regarding her powers, because the previous novel explored her powers a little bit more. She's something new, she's something different. But what she is a sort of siphon, and that connects her too strongly to the Devourer from the first novel. This novel really does bring everything full circle, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But what Rose does is, her faith is in question. Her entire life has been uprooted by both of her sisters. She's living in a new house. Her father is back, but she doesn't quite believe everything is okay like her sisters. Her sisters are completely in this, oh, everything's okay, we're a happy family, la 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 la. Rose isn't like that. In fact, her faith is completely shattered to the point where she enacts a truth canto, which brings the truth out of everyone. And it also shows that her father has been lying this entire time. He does remember where he was. He was in the kingdom of Hadas. It's basically a fairy realm hidden somewhere in the Caribbean. It's an island in the Caribbean, but it's, hidden from mortal eyes. And that's where he was for years. And he remembers, and it breaks Rose's heart because she doesn't understand why he would lie instead of telling everyone the truth. But it's very complicated. And she herself, she breaks the protective barrier, and her father are kidnapped and once again brought to the Kingdom of Hadas to save the kingdom from this blight, this rot that is taking over the land and destroying everything. It's moving closer and closer to the city and just destroying everything in its wake. So Rose is brought in to be guardian. So there's a lot of complexities there, because she has a lot of turmoil with her father. She doesn't really understand why he lied, and it was very complicated for him, because if you go into any folklore, humans that are captured by fairies, they tend to lose their memory of who they once were, of their mortal life. You can look in any fairy tale, they're so enamored by the fairies that they just forget, and she doesn't quite understand why her father forgot them. She doubts her father's love, and it's more complicated than that. There's this sort of magic around that's keeping everything twisted. And I really liked that fantasy element. It was different than Alex's Alice in Wonderland story. It was different than Lula's Resident Evil type story, and it doesn't have as much action as the previous novel, so the pacing does slow down a bit, because it's more about developing the characters, and it's more about developing this world and the mystery behind it. There's a lot of complex emotions regarding the characters, and there's a lot of magic at play here as well. So while the pacing does lag just a little bit, Cordova doesn't lose her presence in the writing. Her core is still there. She's still focusing on the fantasy. She's focusing on the character development and those dynamics. She deals a lot with complex emotions and fighting to deal with loss of faith. And for herself, for Rose, she has a loss of faith. She doesn't understand this power. She grew up her entire life thinking she was one thing, and now that's completely gone. Now she's something else entirely. So she's also questioning her identity. It puts a lot of strain on her, and it builds this barrier between her and her family, because she doesn't know how to talk to them. And she says that a lot throughout the novel, that everyone just keeps everything bottled up. And so she's keeping everything bottled up because that's how she sees everyone around her reacting, you know. They just keep all the bad stuff in. You know, they don't talk about it, but that's not bad because... And then things like enacting a magical canto to develop the truth, to find out the truth, you know, it sort of spins everything out of control for Rose. She's not learning how to deal with her emotions, and in the kingdom of Hadas, she is learning how to deal with her emotions. She's learning how to deal with her identity. She's learning to regain her faith in not just her magic, but in her family as well, because she's lost a lot of faith in her family because, you know, everyone's made a lot of mistakes. You know, her father has made mistakes, her sisters have made egregious mistakes, so she has to learn to let go. You know, she has this weight on her shoulders, and I think that's what makes Rose more different than her sisters, that she's the youngest, but she seems like the most mature of the three of them, and that always struck me in the previous novels. I always thought that she was a very mature character, much more than her age, you know, sort of characterized her. But she's also the key element in bringing the family together. So for that, you know, Cordova excels at character development, at creating strong dynamics, and making sure that the characters are multifaceted. And it's not just Rose, you know, her father as well. You know, his entire story arc that has been hinted at since the first novel is finally brought to a close. And it's a wonderful close because it ties up so many loose ends from the first novel. You know, this entire series has worked as a circle. It brought everything, excuse me, it brought everything together and to a near perfect close. You know, there's still Nova, you know, he's kind of up in the air, so maybe there will be another novel after this, but the Mortiz family, the story of the daughters of the Brujas, their story has been brought to a close. And the fantasy element, you know, the Kingdom of Hadas, it's so richly described. You get to see the vibrancy of the fantasy, of the fairy creatures, and you get to see all the elements and all these different aspects of magic going on. Now, what I really appreciated as far as Cordova's story is the fact that there is, she made the effort to create a word for non-binary characters. There's no brujo, bruja, it's brujex, you know, and I thought that was so wonderful that Cordova made that effort to create a word for non-binary people. You know, it was amazing to highlight such representation, to go that extra mile and invent a word that didn't exist for people who do exist. You know, now they don't have to go or force themselves into a label. Now they have their own, you know, they have their own word, and I really appreciated Cordova's thought process. I appreciated her representation. I think anyone in the LGBTQ community is also going to admire that representation and the fact that she went that extra mile to create a word. Overall, you know, I've already said this, it was a really good story. It was very rich. It was very diverse. I thought it was just, it moved a little too slowly for my taste, especially after just reading Bruja Born. You know, that novel just moved so quickly. So this novel moved a little slower than that. So it lost me a little bit in that respect, but I still loved the story. I still thought it was a really good story. I thought it was a really good way to highlight Rose as a character and really bring her to life and to show the core of the family and to show all this fantasy and mysticism in the novel. So overall, once again, this was Wayward Witch by Zoraida Cordova, published by Shorts Books Fire. Please remember to check out your library's digital catalog. And if money's not too tight, please check out this novel when it comes out later this year from your local bookseller. Have a great day, and as always, happy reading.